Fun fact, here in Australia, over 90% of coffee is served with milk. We drink so much milk that you could say that we've got a milk culture rather than a coffee culture. Anyway, rather than getting on our high horse about how everyone should be drinking black coffee, we decided it was time to dig deeper into how to make the best damn milk coffee possible. Now, we've known for a long time that the ratio of coffee to milk makes a big difference in customer preference. Some people choose stronger coffees like the Piccolo Latte, double shot flat white, or a cortado. These are often in the range of 1 part coffee to 1 to 2 parts milk. While on the other end of the scale, some people choose half or even quarter strength. But honestly, if we look at the numbers, both of these groups are in the minority. The vast majority of people go for something in between, like a cappuccino, flat white, or a latte. So for these popular styles of coffee, we wanted to find out what the ideal coffee to milk ratio is, and if it changes depending on the blend of coffee that you use. So naturally, we did a few tests. We picked a range of espresso blends, a classic medium roast crowd pleaser, a heavier Italian style blend, lighter roast specialty blend, and a fruity natural process specialty blend. For each blend, we made a series of milk coffees with a coffee to milk ratio ranging from 1 to 4.5 and 1 to 6.5. We mixed up the samples and got a group of people to taste and rank them based on their own personal preference. We then crunched the numbers and found a couple of things that we weren't actually expecting. But before I dive into that, just bear in mind, these numbers are naturally biased by our location and the types of coffees that our tasters are used to drinking, so your own results may vary. We're just sharing what we found in our own tests in case that is useful for you. With that out of the way, this is the very first thing that we found. People chose the same ratio regardless of the blend that we used. We expected that people would prefer more milk in the traditional, punchier blends. We often talk about certain blends cutting through the milk. So this was pretty surprising, particularly for the Italian style blend that contains a mix of Arabica and Robusta. Robusta adds a strong, distinctive note to the blend, often used to bump up the perception of strength. So we expected people would prefer more milk with this particular blend. But no, most people picked the same ratio as they did for the other 3 blends. Now, this isn't to say that people didn't notice a difference in strength between these coffees. It's simply what they preferred when it came to the same ratio of coffee to milk for whatever reason. Of course, like all roasters, we have a certain style of roasting. So these results may be different if you use a very dark or a very light style of roast, but it is interesting nonetheless. Our group of tasters overwhelmingly preferred coffees when the coffee to milk ratio was between 1 to 5 and 1 to 6. Samples that were stronger or weaker than this range ranked lower across every blend that we did test. With all this talk of ratios, it's pretty easy to overlook the actual quantity of milk that we're talking about. In terms of volume, the sweet spot range adds up to a difference of just about 20 mils of milk for a typical small single shot coffee. 20 mils is basically a dash of milk, so it's really easy to overshoot this amount if you have too much or not enough foam, or if you're using a cup that's too big. Okay, I realize that this is probably all too much nerdy hipster nonsense for some people. Analyzing small amounts of milk in a flat white is pretty over the top. But for those of us who are willing, here are a couple of practical ways that we can use this information. And the first is pretty basic. It's really important to find the right size cups. If you've ever watched our previous videos, then you'll know that I'm always banging on about cup size. It's trickier than it seems to work this out, and mainly because we have to allow for some headspace for milk foam at the top. Based on testing this with some cups in our espresso bar, we found that the cups with a capacity of 170 mils for a single shot or 340 mils for a double shot hit this ratio, based on the way that we make coffee. The 340 ml cup was almost exactly the same capacity as a 12-ounce paper cup that we use. Paper cups are a whole nother problem, which I won't get into now, but I will link to another video down below if you're interested. The other thing we control when it comes to the ratio of coffee to milk is the amount of foam. The foamier the milk, then the less liquid is going to get into the cup, so you'll end up with a stronger coffee to milk ratio and vice versa. Naturally, if you inject too much air or not enough air into the milk when steaming, then this will be your primary cause. But there are also a few other ways that this can be affected. Like if you pour 2 coffees from the same jug, then the first will have more foam than the second. or if you pour very slowly, then more foam will be held back in the jug. Either way, the quickest way to work out if you've hit the mark is to use a set of scales. And yes, this is probably overkill if you're making coffee at home, but in a cafe, it can be pretty useful quality control and training method, and will allow you the ability to make multiple drinks of the same type really quickly, really accurately. So once you've worked out the ideal quantity of milk that you're aiming for, pop the cup with the espresso shot on the scales and zero it. Then pour the coffee in, put the finished product back on the scales, and you can see if you need to adjust your technique for the next time. Okay, it is time for my coffee. I am thirsty, so until next time, stay stoked.